All right. How's it going, everybody? My name is Josh from the Trading Fraternity, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about how much to start trading with, tips for trading a small account, and I'm also going to show you guys some cool stuff you could do with a small amount of capital. And I'm also going to talk about how the Trading Fraternity works and some cool new opportunities we're going to be offering. So, as far as how much money to start trading with, if you're so new to trading that you're asking this question, you should start with nothing. Don't trade at all. The question you should be asking is, where can I paper trade? You should be paper trading, trading with fake money before you get to even funding account or even asking that. There's a couple more steps you should be getting into. But for those of you who are already ready, to that point where you're ready to fund an account, a good rule I give to new traders is whatever amount you think or you've decided you want to come in with half that amount. So if you wanted to start with $10,000, fund 5,000. If you wanted to do 5,000, fund two and a half. But do not do less than $1,000. Okay, you could come in with $1,000 or less, but it's pretty clear to see your chances of success are substantially lower. Uh, and when it comes to succeeding with an amount like that, I'd say it's possible, but it's definitely not probable. I would say the bare minimum to fund an account is $2,000, and that's with a strong emphasis on the word bare minimum. It's in a reasonable amount to start with, but it has some pretty clear limitations as what you could play and how you could diversify. The best starting amount, I'd say, in my opinion, is $5,000 because it's not too big, yet it still allows you to play a wide range of stocks, especially if you utilize margin effectively. So to keep it simple, as far as how much money to start trading with, the best amount I could say is $5,000. And that's if you want the best chance of success. 2,000 if you just want a chance, I guess, to survive. And obviously, you could start with more money, and that's going to increase your chance of success since you're going to be able to spread your money out more effectively. But again, don't forget that 50% funding rule we talked about. But just because you could do more than five does not mean you could fund less than two. Okay, I really want you guys to understand this because I've had a lot of people, tell me they want to start trading and they got something like 400 bucks, 600 bucks, $1,000, and saying they want to fund an account and they're low capital amounts, they're going to do all this crazy stuff or they need low commissions. My advice to you is don't trade. You shouldn't be funding up an account. You should be saving up more so you could come off better, and be learning more about the markets. But with all that being said, the last and most important thing when deciding how much to start with is how much you're comfortable investing. Can you set aside an amount of money to put into the stock market without affecting your current standard of living? If so, how much? Do you have funds saved up, or do you just come into money recently? Again, if so, how much? Once you figure that amount, this is what you need to ask yourself. Are you comfortable losing all of that money? Now, I'm going to warn you, it's one thing to be comfortable with something, in terms of just being able to merely accept it, but there's a lot more to it, especially when you're figuring out, what you're comfortable putting into the stock market. You have to ask yourself, will your life become less comfortable, literally, if you lost that money? Would it change your work hours? What you do for fun? Would you drive where you live? Would it undoubtedly limit your financial opportunities in the future if you lost that money? If you could answer yes to any of those, you shouldn't be investing. So the main rule of thumb is you only invest what you can afford to lose. I'm sure you've heard that before, but the best way to figure out that number of what you can afford to lose, it's select an amount you know that oh, weird. But you want to select an amount that you can lock away for at least 10 years without being able to need it or use it, and it wouldn't affect your standard of living or your future financial opportunities. I really want you guys to think about that. And I really hope you don't downplay the importance of this because properly selecting an amount to trade with can drastically affect your performance for the worst, even if you know everything about trading. That being said, I'm going to elaborate on this a little more to lead into the tips I wanted to talk about for trading a small account since this is the first one. The first tip I'd give for anyone trading a small account or any account really is to strategically choose the amount that you're going to be starting with. I say strategically choose because most people just come up with a random amount to fund, or some arbitrary amount they have saved up with very superficial reasons as to how they're going to use that money, and where they're going to put it. So, what's the logic behind me telling you this, and what is strategically choosing an amount involved? A lot of it revolves around what we already talked about in terms of using an amount and selecting an amount you're comfortable with. The reason why you need to be strategic with selecting your starting amount is because of how it's going to affect your emotions, and that in turn is going to affect your trading decisions. And on the other side, because it's literally going to affect your trading capabilities. So, as far as affecting your emotions, I tell people to come in with half of what they plan because it helps them come in with a clearer mind and a lot less stress when they start trading. So, if you come in with all your money, let's say $10,000, it goes down a little bit, and it inevitably will. You're a new trader. There's going to be mistakes. When you see that money dwindle down, it could, knowing that's all your money, that the stress of that, it could affect you negatively. But let's say you come in with half your money, you're still going to experience that feeling regardless, and maybe even quicker because it's a smaller amount. But but maybe now when the motivation of not bringing an account to zero can motivate you, but even regardless, with half of your available capital, you have half your capital still available. You won't be in a bad situation if everything goes completely wrong and you blow up the account. You can still continue trading if you wanted to, take or even step back, which I'd recommend, reevaluate your approach and come back, but with capital. Knowing you have a reserve, it's going to prevent you from getting too emotional or panicky. So this is why, people, even including myself, will wire up or down accordingly after large gains around the year, because, the psychological and emotional effects it has on you. So with that being the emotional reasoning, the technical reasoning, and I use the term technically very loosely here, is that how much you start with, it's going to affect your trading capabilities, literally. So, for instance, some brokers require $2,000 or more minimum for a margin account. So, how much you come in to fund with, it's going to affect your margin capabilities, and that's going to affect how you're going to be able to move your money. You know, Obviously, a margin account is going to give you more capabilities. So if you're starting with a small account, you want to be able to max your opportunities. So strategically, you'd be able to be better off saving, to get to that point. But the seemingly biggest part about small account affecting your trading capabilities is the the effect it has on the stocks that you could play. When you're starting with a small amount, uh, a lot of people are familiar with this because they even know, you're starting with a small account. It's easy to see how small amounts of capital can only purchase a limited amount of shares. It can only take you so far, and it doesn't allow you to open very many positions. If more than one or two at a time. So, and though all that may be true in some way, as I've discussed in my previous YouTube video, there's a lot of clout or more or less misrepresentation surrounding the topic of what kind of stocks you could play if you have limited capital. Specifically, there's something that I talked about, the undercapitalization myth, and that's where people falsely believe they can invest in these companies that have higher share prices if they don't have a lot of money, since they wouldn't be able to purchase many shares at all. And because the stocks move in small increments and take longer, it turns them off because they believe that the return is not worth what they're putting in. So, though many fell victim to this, it's the logic just ultimately will prove false because the return on initial capital, it's always going to be the same amount, regardless of the cost of the investment. So, simply put, if you put $2,000 into a stock that's $400 and $2,000 into one that's $1 a share, if both of those stocks go up 20%, both of them are going to make you exactly $400. It doesn't matter if one's $1, one's 400. Can you tell me the difference? One's just going to move faster than the other. One takes a lot more and a lot longer to move 20%, while one doesn't. A dollar, that's only 20 cents or whatnot. But ultimately, you see the myth is fueled by impatience and greed. Yeah, if you're impatient or greedy, then you know it makes sense why you would fall to to believe that misconception. But I hope you guys can see the bigger picture, but the main tip in all of this is to really understand the opportunities your money provides. And it's also to understand, where and how you could put your money to make the best of it. So that being said, the next biggest tip I could give, stemming from this point, is to play big board stocks. Don't think you can't play them, because you have a small account. If you have $5,000, you could play stocks priced from $10 to $100 and still be able to get at least 50 shares, even at the higher end of the pricing. And that's enough to make some worthwhile gains. They move slower, they take more time, but when they move, they move. Above all else, they're safer. These companies are established. You're not dealing with companies nobody knows about, and your risk of losing 50% of your capital, a majority of it, is greatly reduced. Even better, these stocks they actually move larger on a day-to-day basis. A couple percentage move on a higher price stock, there's more opportunities to gain than otherwise. It's funny because that so-called volatility these so-called traders look for, it's more persistent in these big board stocks. But going from there, I'd say next, don't trade penny stocks would be my next tip, going hand in hand with that and leading into that. Because the bottom line, you should be playing big board stocks because, if you have a small account or, if all means you just cannot get over your dirty, greedy ways and you just want to make large amounts quickly using a small amount, you don't need to do penny stocks. There's better, safer ways. You could just simply play options. It's pretty much the exact same thing as penny stocks, but less manipulation, and you're dealing with real companies, which means these are real opportunities. Yeah, it gives you the opportunity to even play those big board stocks. But my last and my final tip, for those trading a small account is this: the more that you trade, the more that you're going to lose. Along with that, trading approaches that revolve around day trading and technical analysis, they are not for small accounts. Please understand that. But first, I say that the more you trade, the more you lose, because when you start with a small account, first, commissions are inevitably going to kill you and pose a problem. And simply, the more you trade, the more chances you have to lose, while all the while you're paying for more commissions. This is why I believe day trading strategies, penny stocks, and technical approaches aren't optimal for small accounts, because they all revolve around an approach of multiple entries and exits and small gains. It doesn't work with small accounts. With a small account and little experience, these opportunities fail, and it shows why trading more loses more. Because I'll show you this picture. I'm sure maybe some of you guys have seen it. Uh, this is what it's like. This is a success. You see, what people describe it as. But the thing I'm saying, this is like your commissions. Every single trade you make, $10, 20, 30, 40, 50, it's always going to go up the more and more you trade. So the longer you come trading out, it's inevitably going to come higher. But now here's what your success in the trading is going to look like. It's going to be all over the place, but I'm not going to paint this rosy picture. This stock is going, left to right from bottom to top. Some of your trading success, some of your guys' portfolios, it looks like from left to right, top to bottom. But I hope you guys see that. But ultimately, if anyone's advising you guys to trade as opposed to invest, and go about making money day trading constantly, buying and selling for pennies, the chances are they're probably selling you something. Now, there's nothing wrong with selling something, but when it misrepresents the truth and promotes unrealistic expectations, it's pretty hard not to cry foul. But you don't have to be the most educated trader, and I would hope that anyone selling you a service is one. But you don't have to be the most educated to realize what's beneficial for someone with a lot of capital and what's not. Unfortunately, it's easy for the educated traders to see the incentive people have to misrepresent the truth. They're able to see this and avoid those strategies and not fall into that. But sadly, many don't. But to help inform you guys, I'll challenge you this. I challenge you to just observe how anybody advertising, that you should day trade or play penny stocks, or even better yet, advertises themselves as being successful because of day trading or penny stocks. Notice how they all claim it's possible to do what they do with the small amount, or some of that's where they all came from. And then also notice how they all sell some day trading strategy, or teaching day trading, sell some book or service or whatnot. And my personal favorite, notice how they all encourage day trading, and even promote ways literally to pattern day trade with a small account, even if you don't meet the capital requirements. Literally circumvent a federal regulation. But the best part it lies in how they promote this pattern day trading for small accounts. Of course, not only do they promote it, they even offer you ways to skirt the rules and do it. Go to my overseas broker. They allow you to day trade. Oh, join my hedge fund so you don't get limited by a dumb pattern day trading rule. As much as we would all love to believe they're doing this out of the graces of their kind hearts, it's easier to believe that they're receiving, huge kickbacks and commissions off every account getting funded, and constant back entry exit. But hey, but before I rant any further, just do your research, and don't let your greed make you illogical. And with that, don't be illogical. Like I said, understand what your money could do for you. So with that, I'm gonna go back to this page right here, what I was showing you guys. Hopefully some of you guys will see it. But let's refresh this. Hopefully it doesn't have to make me log in again. Oh, I have to switch my account. Interesting. But you see, July 4th today. Um, this is a play. I'm gonna show you this cool thing of how I turn $600 into 30,000. And now, when I say I turned $600 into 30,000, what happened was I took an initial investment of 600, put it into one play, made money off it, took that money and reinvested it into another play, and ultimately netted $30,000 profit. And this happened over the course of about arguably 15, 19 days, depending on how you want to look at it. But what happened here, April 4th, I bought this first one. I'm gonna just tell you what happened and then get a little more into the stuff I want to point out for you guys. But you see, I got this call here. This is an option, and like I said, that's why I was able to use a small amount and make a lot. Again, options. But I will tell you this: I'm showing you how I'm going to make $30,000 out of 600, but the rule still stands that I said earlier. If you think you're going to come in with $1,000 or less, you can't. You're delusional. It's not going to work like that. If you were coming in with 1,000 or less, I couldn't even advise you to play something like this. You are not able to spread your money out with small amounts, especially extremely small amounts like that. So just because I'm showing you this again doesn't mean I'm encouraging you to come in and use small amounts. So please understand that. But what happened here? This happened. I bought the call on April 9th. So that's the first day. I don't know why it's saying um, April 4th. But, April 9th to the 17th, that's the date of the first transaction. The first play, you see, April 9th, I bought it for it says $6. That's for 100 shares of it. So $605. That's what I purchased, for the contract. And then 8 days later, I'm able to sell it for 9,000, and the net, the profit itself is 8,400. I even played another play on that same company a little later, and I bought it the day before and sold it the next day, and 500 and made 15. But here's the main profit from the 600, 8,400. And what I did there, I took that 8,400 and I went to another company, this same day, the 16th and 17th, and I bought these two contracts. And then throughout the rest of the week, I bought more the 22nd and the 23rd. And then I sold all of them out on the 24th and the last one on the 28th. So doing all that, I reinvested out of the 8,000 profit, 8,400, about 7,000. And, I kept a little bit more than that 600 I initially put in my pocket. And the rest was into this. And the play ended up working out very good in my favor. And I was able to profit $20,000 additionally. So that's how I made it. I'm not going to get into too much details of how I found it, what exactly we did. But the things that I want to show you guys with this, especially in relation to what we're talking about with small capital amounts, is, what we did here. The first, notice the time span, April 16th to the 28th, but ultimately, April 9th to the 28th. And you see how we broke it up. But on every single one of these trades, we made $30,000 without day trading once. I did not have to open and close one position in the same day. I didn't have to sit in front of the screen like that. I was able to space it out and buy. I bought some and sold them the next day, sure, but you see the point here. So that's the first thing, and the next biggest thing, you see the profits here. Total gain 9,000, total gain 20,000. This is what I want you to look at: the commissions and the fees. The first one, to profit $9,000 for both of the transactions, I spent $22. On this one for the 8 transactions, I made 10 trades combined. I spent 86. So in total, I spent $100 to net 30,000. Not too shabby. And the best part about that too is this is with the broker like E-Trade. Some people say they have some of the highest commissions. Obviously I get lower commissions since I've been with them for a while and I trade a lot, but even then, you don't need to skimp on your brokerage or do anything to be able to do this, or put your money overseas to have very lucrative opportunities like this. And ultimately, the last and the final thing I would point out is the stocks that we played. These are stocks that about. These are high priced stocks that are 400 bucks. No, if you told anybody that you can make $30,000 off a $400 stock using $600, they would not believe you. Because you can only get one share and some. But this is what I'm saying. Finding the opportunity of how to use your money. That is the big point. So you guys are seeing how this played out. I'll get more information on this and some of the other stuff I'm going to explain. But these are some of those cool stuff. I really hope it helps. I hope some of these other lessons helped you and that you guys are able to learn something from this. Whether you agree with me or not, just know I get nothing from making this video. I don't benefit or lose anything if you take my advice or not. So I just hope it helps you, and I encourage you to let it do just that. But anyways, the last thing that I wanted to talk about is something that we're going to be doing here with the trading fraternity. A really cool. I want to talk to you guys about the trading fraternity itself and another opportunity. But I'm going to start first with the trading fraternity. With there being so many applicants and questions that come with everybody applying, I figured I'd try to clear up as much confusion as possible. And also, if you've reached out to me or applied and are confused as to why you haven't received a response, there could be many reasons. You could have misspelled your email when you requested an app, so we couldn't get you one, or you requested an app, we sent one. Could have went to spam and you never saw it. But if you did receive an app and didn't get a response, it could be because you were late in getting some forms in. That's the most common reason. The next common one is people just simply don't follow instructions correctly. Or at the very least, the 20 spots got filled up and we just had scheduling conflicts and couldn't get you or in contact with you. Regardless, though, if you didn't get into this latest pledge class, which we started a couple days ago, it doesn't mean you can't get into this class. I would encourage you all to apply again. And definitely, apply, but only if you have the time and dedication. But getting into it, whether about me or the trading fraternity or not, what it is, the trading fraternity, here's our website, tradingfraternity.com. It's a school and mentorship program I started about a year and a half ago that focuses on stocks, real estate, and entrepreneurship. And our main course offering has to do with stocks, as you can probably tell by this video. It's a 3-month course that revolves around a 90-day curriculum that covers everything from what a stock is and how to trade it, all the way to market psychology and how to read filings and balance sheets. It's every day, Monday through Friday, from 9:30 a.m. Eastern to 4 p.m. Eastern. Market open to market close. We do have opportunities and options for people who can't attend all the time. However, the people who have been able to attend more often than not is what I always say are the ones that usually become the most successful and pick it up and get it the best. But it's funny to me because executing the strategy doesn't require sitting in front of the screen all day. That's the best part about the flexibility. However, in my opinion, I believe learning it does. But a good way I like to put it every 3 months, what the trading fraternity is, it's me. I select a group of 20 people, and I say, hey, you could come fish with me every day. I allow them to come watch me, catch thousands of fish every day, and they have the ability to come with me, talk with me, ask me what I'm doing, and learn how it's done. And if they have the desire and more so patience, they're going to come with me every day until they eventually, one day learn how to do it on their own. So I hope that gives you a better idea. Obviously, there's a lot more to the trading fraternity in the course, but that should be enough to give you a fairly general understanding of kind of how it works and what we do. But the biggest, most important aspect of it all, though, in my opinion, is the direct mentorship and live interaction. You know, you're going to be coming every day and talking to me. Oh, how it works? You're going to be seeing my platform. Uh, right here, just as you see it now. You're going to be seeing, even when I go and browse something. You're going to be able to talk to me. Uh, I'll be able to hear you, and the whole point. It's very interactive. You see everything from front to back. Best of all, you're going to get to know the brothers as well as myself in the meantime. And you're going to be able to surround yourself with real traders and businessmen from across the globe who have the same mindset as you. And, best of all, they're willing to help you accomplish, your goals and even just chat. But I could go on for days with that as well, too. So to wrap it up, if you'd like the chance to join the trading fraternity, go to our website. You could go all the way down through here, go down, read the information, and towards the bottom, you'll see that you can request an application. You know, uh, Fill that out and all this here and get that to me. If you want to make sure your application gets in or there's issues, you could always just send me an email, tradingfraternity@gmail.com. But uh, you know ah, I look forward to getting your guys' emails, but I will warn you now, this course isn't going to be for everybody. So yeah, I guess we're going to see, who has what it takes. But to wrap up this video, lastly, I'm going to talk about the cool new opportunity that we're going to be offering with the trading fraternity, and it's more or less, I guess, going to be for everybody, and that's going to be the TTF Citizen Package. Now, I'm calling it an opportunity because this is going to be our first non-invitational program. It's going to be a lot different than our main program that I just explained, as this isn't going to be as direct of a mentorship or have that, but it will have some of those aspects. However, the main opportunity lies in the fact that you're going to have a real opportunity to learn about the stock market and understand the types of opportunities in the market that exist, and how real people took advantage of them. Also, as I'm gonna explain later, we want this to be one of many things we do to help bring financial education to the public. So the citizen package is going to be an integral part in our goal of creating a healthy learning environment and community for people who want to learn about investing. So you guys are definitely going to have the opportunity to pioneer that and be some of the first people to be a part of that and help build that up and make it happen. And finally with that, the last opportunity is going to be able to interact with myself and all the brothers, and many other people. And if we're able to see people who are active, we're actually going to get a insight into the public. And we see that they're about the same goal of contributing towards that environment, they'll get called up to be a brother and receive a scholarship. So I know I talk a lot, but before I get into the specifics of everything that's going to be offered, I want to explain why we're even going to be releasing this service. I feel like that needs to be cleared up first because, as most people who know me know, I hate stock alert services. And but another thing too, I also want people to understand why we're offering this, so they could get a better idea if it's going to be right for them. So, as you heard earlier in this video, it's clear what ticks me off about alert services. Alert services are even relevant in this discussion right now because some people instantly think alerts when you say you're offering a service. So, I hate alert services. Please understand that, and it's simply because most of them promote irresponsible investing tactics, and approaches. So, as I'm going to explain later, the Citizen Package, it's not an alert service. It's actually going to be in mainly a newsletter. The whole point of alerts, though, is to act on them, in real time or as fast as possible to profit off of a play that somebody else is already playing, before you. It emphasizes, day trading, going for these quick scalps and you getting these opportunities. The citizen package is going to be, the exact opposite. There's going to be none of that. The whole point of the citizen package and why we're even doing it, it's because we want to provide tools for all traders, especially those just starting and getting into the markets. We're offering this service because, at the same time, we understand how long of a process it is to even get accepted to the trading, for people who really want to get that in depth. Only 20 people getting selected, we wanted to give a healthy option for people who are waiting to join in the meantime, or for those who don't make it. And we understand that initially that people are eager to start trading stocks and they want to learn. So eager sometimes they unfortunately they they would just start acting on their learning, or acting on anything because they think they are, and they get caught up in other traps, get into scams, and they get or they'll even the worst thing, get socialized into the market with this, toxic mentality of what they think they can do and what's possible and how it works. But, with only accepting 20 people per class, in that 3 months, we do it to maintain a direct learning environment, but it's unfortunate that more people can't be learning this information given how useful and empowering it is. I wish everyone could, because it's pretty empowering thing to know, how to let your money work for you and do things like turn $600 into $30,000. I call it empowerment because you're going to have the ability that no one could take away from you at any given time. You won't need anything but your two cans to ever create. No restrictions, no boss, no left leg or right leg, and I'm not talking physically, but that's why we're offering this service, because it's going to allow us to be able to share this information with as many people as we can while still maintaining, our direct mentorship and effectiveness and still allow us to accomplish our goals. But bringing this all full circle, you see how this varies, from an alert service. The point of the citizen package, like all our programs, is primarily to learn. It's not about making money. It may sound weird for some people, and if it does, it's not for you. This is to learn. Obviously, when you learn, you can make money off what you know, but it's clear what the main focus is. So, if you understand that, we could get into now everything that's going to be included. The information's on the website. To see it, go to our website, tradingfraternity.com, and scroll to pretty much the very bottom. I haven't updated yet because I'm recording this video now, but you should see it under here. But you could go here, click this, and start reading. It'll say, what's up. Here's what's included, and this is what I'm about to go over with you guys right now. And here's how to join, and then the wonderful disclaimers and all that, that everybody loves. So this is how you see it. You guys could check it out, but I'm gonna go over it with you guys now so you understand. But the first and the main part of the service is going to be revolving around the newsletter. It's going to be a weekly email that's going to be sent out, and it's going to outline the trading fraternity's biggest gainers and losers in the market, as well as what's going on within the markets and the opportunities that we're looking at. In all of this, you're going to get an explanation as to why we're doing what we're doing and why we're looking at something. And when a trade is made by me or one of the other brothers, you're going to get a breakdown of that trade and the logic from front to back. There's also going to be a segment in that called the IPO Sniper. And while we're going to inform you guys what IPOs are coming out, in the future, you're also going to get notified which IPOs that are going to be added to the trading fraternity portfolio. The ones that myself or the other brothers are going to play. And you're also going to get a breakdown as to why we like those IPOs and the reasoning behind wanting to get in on it. The best part now, which is a lot, and this is always a lot of fun for me, and that's the days that we're going to have the IPOs and the days IPO we plan on playing comes out. All the citizens are going to get emailed instructions on how to join, a live webinar where you could interact with me just how you are now and watch and talk and to watch the IPO get traded live. So that's going to be, very, very cool, especially for those of you familiar with IPOs and, know the opportunities they can bring. But we're also going to do the same thing with company earnings reports, and we're going to let you know what companies are releasing, what dates and times, and even the companies, that we're looking at, and how we plan to profit off of them, and how you even can profit off of something like that. So that that kind of wraps up, what's all inside of the main newsletter, and that's what's going to get included. And you see, those are the learning materials that we hope to help you with. But the second part of the citizen package, it's going to be the chat room, and it says beta chat on the website, but because again, the newsletter is going to be our main focus. The chat was just a nice little addition we thought we'd throw in, but it's not going to be the most aesthetically pleasing chat. You're going to see it here. You could open up a public chat room, and when people are on there, you could log in and talk to everybody. Excuse me. But you could even send private messages. But the whole idea of the chat, it's to offer a place for all traders. A place for all traders that's vetted by individuals who are versed and successful in the markets. Being monitored live every day by me and the fellow brothers, it's going to be a chat that people can join and ask questions freely without any penalty. We're actually going to strongly encourage it. And with there being a strict standard of promoting good and healthy, safe investment practices. The chat's going to be monitored and remove all pumps, scams, pretty much crap. People are going to know what's being talked about isn't toxic, and that it's quality. You know, Lastly, again, it's going to be the chat's going to be an indirect form to communicate with the brothers as well as myself, and it's going to be a good way for us to see potential people who want to join and spot potential prospects. But finally, the last part of the citizen package, going back down here, is going to be what we have here wrapped up here, and that's going to be the free weekly webinars and classes. This is the more direct mentorship aspect of the citizen package I was saying, but because these are going to be our live events that I'm going to personally host. So they're going to be once every weekend or every other weekend or so, and I'm going to host a live Q&A webinar to go over the material from the latest newsletter and explain everything in it and answer any questions people may have. You're going to be able to join, and see my screen again like you see now, and be able to interact, text or voice. And next, even included in those webinars on the same day or even on separate days, I'm going to host webinars where you could, again, interact the same fashion. And they're going to be small, mini interactive courses on everything from how to trade options, short stocks, find a brokerage, set up a platform, and many other useful things. It's going to be a great way for everyone to experience, a little bit about what we do and get answers to their questions. And like it says here, and what I said earlier, the class, it's going to be providing an opportunity, to let your name get known, especially for those of you who are interested in joining here. And, if you are, for some, I'd say, if you trade actively every day, you need to be here. And, again, as we see with the scholarship opportunities, we have many opportunities even outside the stock market. I don't know if I explained that, but it's I will get into it. You may hear from me soon on that, but those parts are oh so important. But I'm finally done with all of that. That pretty much wraps it all up. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, benefited off it in some way, and clears up any confusion about trading or even the trading fraternity. If you still have questions or just want to get in touch with me, you can always hit me up on Twitter, shoot me an email, tradingfraternity@gmail.com. But that pretty much is the final thing. To see the citizen and to apply, go to our website down here. How to join, just sign up, and we're going to email you again. Even on the service, it's something we take being personal, and everyone in our program, citizen, we want to know who everyone is. So you're going to get personally emailed, and we'll go from there. But on that note, I really hope we could introduce you guys to greatness. Have a blessed day and stay in school.